Hello everyone, I would like to thank you for all your support and love. We already have more than 300 subscribers. See the channel's best moments. And wait, we will have much more news. Can animals like a lion, a tiger and a hyena live with each other in the wild? The answer is probably no. If a tiger and a lion still get along well, then it is simply impossible to imagine these wild cats in the company of a hyena. However, what is impossible in the wild becomes perfectly possible in captivity. There are 5 different animals in the photo, 3 lion cubs, a tiger cub and a hyena cub. They are all orphans, as the females simply abandoned them, apparently deciding that the cubs were too weak and unviable. Fortunately for the babies, they were born at the Akwaba Lodge nursery in South Africa, so people took care of the newborns who were left without motherly love. The nursery staff decided to place the puppies in an enclosure so they wouldn't feel alone. With that, the tiger cub, the hyena and the 3 lion cubs became true friends, and now they play with each other all day, despite all the differences between them. Of course, in the future, when they grow up and become real predators, they will have to be housed in different enclosures, but now they are like one big happy family. Although some breeders admit that animals can be kept together as long as they continue to interact positively with each other. The leader of her heterogeneous company is undoubtedly the tigress Bella. She is 5 months old and has become something of a leader to 3 lion cubs and a hyena puppy. The lion cubs are also 5 months old, but they are shyer, so Bella is in charge of the enclosure, says the nursery owner, Layla Sage. If the leader of the group is Bella, then the main prankster is considered Milika, who behaves very noisy and does not miss a single opportunity to fight with her friends. In the jungle, everyone would be condemned to death, but now the soul rejoices when we see how they grow together and become true friends. Of course, they periodically fight over food, but after a fight there is always a truce and they fall asleep in each other's arms. On one of the streets, where the roads looked broken and the buildings a little neglected, there was a building. A little dog was sitting alone on its side wall. Some kind of plaque hung around its fragile neck. Coming closer, the volunteer could see what was written on a rectangular piece of paper. They were simple words, but so understandable: "I need a home." The puppy needed an owner and domestic comfort, which was reported by the unknown author of the note. This way of attracting attention was somewhat strange, as the baby could simply be taken to a shelter, but someone thought that in the crowd there would definitely be a caring person who would not pass by. And so it happened. A little white dog with a black spot around one eye just stood there looking confused, and no one knew how long he had been here. However, with the advent of a volunteer, the situation changed, as the baby had a chance to be saved. A woman called a shelter worker and asked for help. When the volunteer approached, the little white baby got a little nervous. He didn't know what to expect from a man, but the first touch convinced him there was nothing to be afraid of. After caressing the baby, the volunteer carefully lifted him off the ground and took him in her arms. And then she pulled out a sign from the crumbs, announcing the need to find the puppy a home. The shelter worker knew that the baby would be safe now, and he definitely didn't have to carry a rope around his neck. Instead of a dirty street, the puppy soon found himself in a warm bed. From the expression of his fluffy muzzle, it was clear that this was something new for the dog, but comfort clearly fell to the taste of the crumbs. And then he was fed and petted, which made the little one very happy. Well, the stranger's request for a home, which was written on the paper, was granted, only it would have been much better if the puppy had simply been brought to the shelter, and not abandoned in the old house. An orphaned kitten was lucky to enter a cozy home, in a warm family circle. Animal activist Jess Thoren, who owns a shelter for cats in Hoboken, New Jersey, came to the shelter for 3 kittens and saw an orphaned baby there, alone. The furry one was the youngest of all. Jess could not calmly watch as the kitten is left alone in the shelter. She immediately offered to take him home along with the 3 she had originally come for. A kitten named Frankie quickly adapted to a comfortable new environment. Weighing 250 grams, Frankie needed extra care and a 24-hour bottle feed. Being the youngest, Frankie was still attracted to his half-siblings and was determined to keep up with them. Nothing could shake his resolve. The kitten really enjoyed the home environment and especially enjoyed being among other fluffy animals. 3 kittens fell in love with him as if they were his own. They accepted the youngest friend into their company and invited him to participate in all undertakings. As Frankie slowly revealed his abilities, the elders served as an example to him, and he learned more and more by looking at them. After a long run, the little kitten snuggled up with her brothers and sister and fell asleep, purring. The fact that he was the smallest of them all didn't stop him. The brave kitten was not going to lag behind the others in games. He gained weight and strength, and his character came out brighter. He won't fall asleep if there's no friend around to snuggle with. Frankie prefers to wrap her paws around her sleeping friends or bury her muzzle in their fur. The little cat does not remember his sad childhood and enjoys life in a big family. In a few weeks, they will all be old enough to be ready to find a permanent home. Now he thrives in foster care, playing with and cuddling with other foster children.
Jacob Miller has been overweight his entire life. Although the boy was born 5 weeks earlier, within a year his weight reached 24 kilograms. And at the age of 15, he weighed 231 kilograms. Problems with being overweight negatively affected the health of the teenager. The doctors shrugged. The problem was probably a hormonal imbalance. Of course, Jacob often had to be the victim of ridicule from his peers. The guy for a long time could not get out of depression. Miller understood that obesity was slowly killing him. The guy decided, "This cannot continue, you need to pull yourself together." With the help of his parents and doctors, Jacob even developed a weight loss plan. At the age of 15, Jacob suffered from diabetes, heart problems. The guy also had serious problems with his legs and liver. Doctors decided that they could not do without gastric bypass. It is noteworthy that, thanks to a healthy lifestyle, Jacob Miller lost about 35 kilograms even before the operation. 6 months after the surgery, Jacob has lost almost twice his weight. This guy definitely deserves respect. Overweight people are divided into 2 types. For those who love each other like that and the point, and for those who understand, something needs to be changed, this cannot go on. This teenager decided once and for all to get rid of excess weight, for which I mentally shake his hand. If you were inspired by this guy's example like I was, share this article with your friends. Dear friends, if you liked the video, give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more.
Animals also know how to make friends just like that, giving a friend everything good for free. There are many vivid examples of this, but today we would like to talk about a special case. Could you imagine that a wild animal can become attached to an ordinary domestic cat? This is exactly what happened in Turkey. Several years ago, on the shore of Lake Van, located 25 kilometers from a small Turkish town, local residents admired an unusual couple, a wild fox and a van cat. For the first time, these animals were accidentally noticed by a fisherman when he put fishing rods on the shore of a reservoir. At first, he thought the predator intended to eat the little creature, but after observing he realized that the animals were just having fun playing. The red-haired representative of the canine family shared lunch with the cat and gently rubbed her nose against it. The Turkish cat belongs to a species created by chance in a natural way. These creatures are distinguished by such character traits as activity, affection, tenderness and fidelity. Van cats love to be bathed because their coat is waterproof. This is the only member of the cat family that can fish directly in the water. There are even legends about the graceful little predator here. The dexterity of these creatures is admirable. They boldly hunt lizards, birds and catch mice. People assume that a wild cat once took custody of a small fox, thanks to which their relationship has survived to this day. Local fishermen have been feeding the amazing couple their catch for several years now. Animals always eat their fish in a friendly way, without offending each other and without catching prey. People care about extraordinary friends and even warn everyone who comes here not to hurt or scare the animals. Friends do not hesitate to carelessly play, bite and play in front of locals. These two creatures are considered by many to be the top local celebrities. Over the forgotten rubble, a woman named Emma walked past the embankment. Something caught her attention, a slight movement, a rustle, amid the lifeless trash. Curiosity piqued, she approached cautiously, the sound of breaking glass beneath her feet. And there, in the middle of the trash, was a tightly tied bag, shifting inexplicably. Emma's heart raced as she untied the knots, her anticipation turning to horror as the bag opened to reveal a pair of frightened eyes. A live dog lay inside, terrified and huddled in the same bag that had been her prison. The poor creature retreated before Emma, with a mixture of fear and gratitude in its eyes. News of this shocking discovery reached Marina Kozushko, an employee at a local car dealership. 4 days have passed since Emma's rescue, but Marina felt an undeniable need to investigate. The landfill, she knew, held secrets that needed to be revealed. When Marina arrived at the landfill, her eyes scanned the chaotic landscape until they came upon a heartbreaking sight, the same dog, lying in the same bag, as if time had frozen since Emma's intervention. The animal seemed lost, unable to comprehend the vastness of the world beyond the landfill's boundaries. Determined, Marina approached the trembling dog. Her eyes reflected a mix of fear and confusion, and he clung to the familiarity of the bag beneath him. Tenderly, Marina took the frightened creature in her arms, feeling its racing heartbeat against her chest. The dog, in turn, snuggled into Marina's warmth, finding solace in the arms of his newfound savior. The ride back to the dealership was silent, the only sounds were the dog's soft whimpers and the rustle of Marina's jacket. Once inside the dealership's premises, the dog's transformation began. The first thing the dog looked for was water, a desperate sip of life to quench the thirst that lasted entire days. Marina watched with tears in her eyes as the creature drank several liters, a poignant reminder of the resilience that can emerge from the darkest corners of despair. The dog was fed willingly, each morsel a step towards healing. In the days that followed, workers at the dealership cared for their new friend, looking after his physical and emotional health. The bond between Marina and the dog deepened, a testament to the power of compassion. One day, a man was returning home and near the road he found a very small creature, of unknown species and sex. The little animal didn't even try to resist, as it had difficulty moving. He quickly fell asleep in the man's warm hand, so there was nothing left to do but take this little ball of fur home. The man didn't even understand exactly who he was bringing home and what to do with him. He assumed it was a weasel or some kind of ferret, but he wasn't sure. At home, the man's main task was to feed the child, even if it was not clear what kind of creature it was. The little creature tried to attack pieces of fried cod pulp, but it didn't work. The owner even managed to give the little creature milk with a pipette. And literally 5 minutes later the animal began to show signs of life. Obviously, the animal was completely dehydrated. Later the guy read that it was a weasel and also learned how to take care of it. The milk apparently helped, and the next morning the weasel was running. After a month, he grew stronger to the point that he began to recognize me and grabbed each of my fingers, clearly intending to attack them, as if he were a poisonous viper. When the dog appeared, the animal began to scream loudly, clearly calling for one of its parents. The little weasel continued to live in the man's house. They called him Timmy. Timmy would eat a piece of lean, raw pork or a chicken breast the size of his head without leaving a trace, and then go into hibernation for half a day, curling up in a ball and ignoring everyone. The children really liked the animal. They simply play and feed him until he falls asleep. Anyway, the whole family got used to the baby living in their house. Little by little, the weasel grew up and learned to hunt mice, which was very useful in a large private house where there were many mice. Then the weasel started to run into the street and appear at home less and less. The owners already thought that the animal had abandoned them. But the weasel sometimes did not appear for a long time and ran into the forest again. Apparently she really liked her free life. The man already misses the friend he saved from death and hopes to be able to play with Timmy again. Even if the weasel no longer comes close to us, sometimes it still comes for something tasty. A raccoon named Pumpkin is nothing like other representatives of his species. He lives in a house in Nassau, Bahamas, knows how to use the bathroom, swims in the pool, loves watermelons and is friends with 2 dogs, whom he considers himself closest relatives. The baby raccoon literally fell on his future owner's heads last fall. He fell out of a tree in the backyard of a woman named Rosie Camp, where she found him with a broken back leg. Rosie and her daughter, Laura Young, waited hours for the injured animal's mother to return, but it soon became clear that she would not return. So they decided to help the little foundling and took him home. Furthermore, in the Bahamas it is allowed to keep these wild animals as pets. The women named the pet, fed it, kept it warm and pampered, bottle feeding it every 2 hours until Pumpkin was completely recovered. Before his owners knew it, the little raccoon had become everyone's favorite, including the shelter's adopted dogs, Toffee and Oreo. Pumpkin instantly became attached to his new neighbors, followed them and soon, apparently mistaking them for his relatives, began to imitate their behavior. She regularly hugs, kisses and plays with her best friends. Sometimes during play, Pumpkin can be rude. He bites and bites dogs, but at the same time he always knows when to stop. The raccoon now lives with Rosie's daughter, Laura, and her husband, William. According to the current owner, taking care of it was and still is a daily job that takes a lot of time. But all the difficulties are alleviated by positive moments. The pumpkin is incredibly smart, intelligent and even capable of expressing emotions. The pumpkin loves relaxing on the sofa, having lunch at the table, playing in the pool and even using the bathroom for its intended purpose, and sometimes, as is usual with dogs, it serves as a source of drinking water for her. The pumpkin's favorite food is watermelon, but the animal will not refuse human food such as fried eggs. Laura admits that her raccoon is a mischievous and furry thief who requires constant attention, but this fact does not stop her from loving and pampering her pet in every possible way. A cat named Lime was rescued along with her sister when they were just 3 days old. The animals were born with diseased eyes, and by the time the activists arrived, they were already suffering from a serious eye infection. The Animal Welfare Organization in Jacksonville, Florida, took these cats off the street and placed them in temporary shelters where the animals could be properly cared for. Initially, no one was sure if these children would survive for at least the next few days, but miraculously they still made it. After 2 weeks, the kittens recovered almost completely and felt fine. Brianna Rosario from Miami saw a photo of Lime online, and this sweet mole rat immediately reminded her of another blind kitten named Lemon. His coat was also gray, and a compassionate woman also sheltered him. Later, the cat died of heart disease, but still managed to learn in his life what true love and care is. Without thinking twice, Brianna packed her things and went after Lime. When I saw her for the first time, I was thrilled, recalls the rescuer of a blind cat. Lime has been a confident, spunky, playful and happy kitten since day one in her new home. She followed Brianna everywhere. Although Lime doesn't see anything, she perfectly compensates for this lack with her other senses. The owner gradually introduced the rescued kitten to all the other cute inhabitants of her home. Very quickly, the blind cat befriended a rescued dog named Letty. As soon as Lime found out about the existence of Letty's tail, she immediately became attached to this dog and began to follow her everywhere. A few days after the first meeting, these animals became friends. They did not spill water, played together and constantly relaxed. Letty and Lime have a unique friendship. When these animals are together, they are the happiest in the world. Letty's closeness and presence give Lime a sense of comfort and security, as she literally bathes her friend in caresses. Since these animals met, they almost never part. One day, Stuart McDaniel, owner of a marketing company in Tulsa, Oklahoma, had a problem. Mouse appeared in his office, located on the first floor. Having decided to get a cat, Stuart went to a local animal shelter. The man took the 6-month-old kitten out and placed it in the company's office. The kitten adapted perfectly to its new place. All day long he walked around the office, climbed onto computer keyboards and helped employees send unfinished emails and caught mice. One day, company employees discovered something strange. In front of the closed glass doors leading out of the building, there was a pile of small bills on the floor and her cat was sitting next to them. People were perplexed. Where did the cat get the money and in such amounts? The following day the situation repeated itself. Determined to find out what was going on, employees began closely monitoring the cat and discovered the following. During the day, the cat spends a lot of time in front of the glass doors, sunbathing. People passing by, wanting to play with the cat, inserted a note into the slot and the cat deftly pulled it out. McDaniel decided to test the theory by closing the door and posting a note while the cat was lying in the sun. The cunning man immediately paid attention and, with a deft movement, pocketed the note in a split second. It must be said that the building is located in an area where there are many entertainment centers and walking routes. During the day, many people pass by the office without rushing. So at the end of the night there is a lot of money. Noticing how his pet earns money at night, McDaniel decided that the profits should be used profitably. He began donating it to a charitable fund to help the city's homeless population in the name of his store cat. The fame of the money-loving cat quickly spread throughout the city and people began sending money to charities even through the mail and the internet. After the cat's addiction to money was discovered, he was given the nickname Cash Nip. This is how the cat miraculously helps other people who need help. Moon, a 5-year-old dog from Australia, replaced the foster mother of 74 kittens at the shelter. Her owner, Kate Hayes, works in a veterinary clinic and 5 years ago she found Moon on the street and brought him to her work, and then left him with her forever. Moon was a puppy back then. Moon quickly got used to the veterinary clinic and began greeting and seeing off visitors. If an animal is sick and crying, Moon will sit next to it, sympathizing with its pain. He has a very kind character, says Kate. 4 years ago, when Moon was already an adult, Kate decided to take custody of the 3-legged kitten Phoenix. And when Moon met Phoenix, he was in 7th heaven, as if he had found a long-lost sister. Phoenix was recovering from surgery to amputate her paw and Moon was by her side the entire time and protecting her. After that, Kate began to take in other kittens for a while that needed care, and Moon took them under her wing almost like Phoenix. He lay next to them, warmed them and always kept his ears open in case one of the kittens ran more than necessary. When Moon hears a kitten squeak, he perks up his ears and immediately runs to look for the kittens. And when he finds them, he lies down next to them. He acts as if he were their adoptive father. Many of the kittens that came to Kate were orphans and still very young. It was very important for them to always have something soft and warm by their side, like their mother. Mostly, the kittens come to Kate by people who find them abandoned on the street and take them to the veterinary clinic, because they don't know of any shelters where they can deliver them. Kate takes care of the kittens and finds them a home. Kate recently came into possession of a very sick kitten. He was found in an industrial area and had burns on all 4 paws, as well as anemia and lots of fleas. Dog Moon didn't leave her side until the kitten recovered and started walking on its own. So far, Moon has helped 74 kittens survive. Almost all of them have found new families and 2 of them have stayed in our home.
Last month, 2 kittens were found in a New York backyard, around 10 to 12 weeks old. Very scared, they didn't approach people. Rescuers set up several humane traps, hoping to help the kittens. After several attempts, the babies were picked up separately and taken to the municipal shelter. Overexposure volunteer Asa, knowing this, didn't back away and offered her services. And her 7-year-old dog Kona was looking forward to the arrival of new students. Kona has been missing her kittens for several days after her last wards left for their new families. We watched baby Kona moan for days and finally got her to cheer up. With the arrival of a tabby kitten named Blair, we understood that she had little human contact in her life and didn't feel like getting started. And it was Kona who knew exactly what the kitten needed. Kona touched the carrier with her paws and eagerly wanted to meet the new one. She followed Blair behind her, washing her insistently and stroking her. Having received so much love, the shy young cat quickly got over her shyness and felt confident. While her instincts told her to run and hide, she stayed where she was and soaked up the gentle care of her dog friend. Soon Blair began to purr enchantingly and even tried to drink Kona's milk, as if she were her mother. Chester, Blair's brother, arrived the next day to overexposure. The red-haired boy had socialization issues. He didn't get off the carrier because he was too scared. Needless to say, Kona also came to the rescue. She ran up to the new one and climbed right into the cart to hug him. Then she lay down next to Chester, as if she wanted to assure him that he was safe. With Kona's help, the two kittens gradually let go. They worked up the courage to approach the foster mom for treats, and Kona was there to cheer them up. Since then, the three have fallen in love with napping together, a cuddly bunch in common. And although the kittens were still afraid of people, they felt loved and needed under Mommy Kona's protection. The tabby kitten has already begun to enjoy affection and even reciprocates the person, he can lick your hand. Kona is proud to see her foster children so happy and continues to show them love every day.
One girl worked at a zoo and loved animals. In fact, she combined her passion for helping animals with her work. One fine day there was a new addition to the zoo. The mother otter gave birth to 5 strong otter cubs. Everything was fine until the moment it was discovered that one of the babies was catastrophically malnourished and simply did not have enough breast milk. The girl made a decision: the baby must be saved, otherwise he will simply die. To do this, she contacted the zoo administration and took the tiny otter to her home. The baby, like a real child, demanded 24-hour attention, but the girl coped. The otter was called Pip. After some time, the young girl made another fateful decision. She decided to leave her parents' house and start her own adult life. After moving, the otter became bored, because in that house there was always someone next to it, and here the owner constantly went to work. The hostess noticed that Pip was depressed and found a way to solve the problem. So that little Pip wouldn't get bored, the owner got the same Bengal kitten. The acquaintance took place in several stages. At first the animals lived in different rooms so that they could get used to each other at least a little, and they hardly saw each other. Then the acquaintance itself took place, of course, under the close supervision of the mother. The owner was very surprised when the two cuties almost immediately found a common language and began to play, fight and bite each other's ears. Apparently, being small and energetic, they immediately found common interests. This is how a strong friendship between such different animals emerged. Pip is very active by nature, like all otters, and requires constant attention. He loves taking baths and the whole room turns into a mini swimming pool. He may also steal some trinket and throw it in an unknown direction. The otters are little tornadoes in the apartment. At least after the games, it's always a mess. Sam, on the other hand, became more reserved as he grew older and behaved more calmly. If Pip gets Sam completely, he can simply climb higher where the otter can't reach him, or climb into a large cardboard box. However, this does not affect their friendship at all, and they spend almost all of their time together. On September 21, 1988, the triplets Traf, Jordan and Chandra were victims of a terrible tragedy, knowing which no one could remain indifferent. The triplets were just 17 months old when their house caught fire. But the worst thing is that the fire claimed the life of his mother Patty. Patty's husband, surrounded by fire, tried to sneak into his daughter's room to save their lives. Leaving unsuccessful attempts to enter the room through the corridor, he leaves the house and breaks the window. The firefighters hadn't arrived yet. Fortunately, the father of 3 manages to stay alive and save the children. The ambulance immediately took the girls to the hospital. On average, 30 to 45% of the triplets' skin was burned. Traf, Jordan and Chandra had to stay in the hospital for several months. Doctors began to fear for their lives. Despite the fact that the fire caused incredible physical pain, terrible pain for the loss of their mother, the little ones did not stop rejoicing and valuing themselves even more. But new challenges awaited them. The father who once saved their lives dies in 2002. The girls, completely orphaned, moved to their grandmother's house. Traf, Jordan and Chandra's skin was almost completely disfigured. Numerous operations failed to erase the traces of the fatal fire. The girls, gradually turning into girls, began to notice their flaws much more clearly. Their faces did not look like other teenage girls. At school, the sisters wore white bandages on their heads all the time in order to somehow avoid the mockery and ridicule of others. But even makeup and heavy clothing sometimes failed to completely hide her deep burns. The people around couldn't stop looking at them. The girls had friends, they had fans, but sometimes, looking in the mirror, they began to be ashamed of their existence. The sisters, however, decided not to give up. One day, Chandra heard the name of Dr. Gil Weibel, specialist in removing burn scars. The case of the triplets seemed so serious to the doctor that he agreed to the free treatment. For Jordan, such a gesture was a real gift. The girl was soon to be married. Trying on the wedding dress after the treatment, the bride marveled at her transformation. "I would never have dared to wear this dress when I was covered in scars." Now the sisters feel much more confident. Following the sisters' example, 50,000 people have undergone a similar treatment since 2009, completely getting rid of their scars. This is what the girls look like now. Incredible transformation. Dear friends, if you liked the video, give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more. There are friendships that are a little different from others. The friendship between a jaguar called Jags and a Jack Russell Terrier called Bullet is one of them. Although it seems unusual, the two met and became best friends. Jaguars are carnivorous predators and, like lions and tigers, hunt deer and other large animals. That's why most people thought the dog would now be a jaguar's dinner when Bullet slipped behind the predator's fence at Aquaba Lodge in South Africa. But what happened next was very different from the alarming assumptions of the eyewitnesses. It turns out that Jags and Bullet are best friends. Without a doubt, if the jaguar wanted, it could have eaten the puppy, but they were inseparable friends. They are always close, sleep and play together. When Jags, who arrived at the sanctuary when he was just a few months old, grew up and was moved to a new, larger fenced area, Bullet missed his friend terribly. Jags was very sad that his friend was no longer with him. Bullet felt the same and stood at the entrance to the fence, hoping to meet up with his friend. The Jags caretaker thought about the current situation and in the end made the only right decision. Bullet was allowed into Jags' territory and the friends were back together. Although the jaguar is bigger and stronger than his friend, Bullet takes the dominant position in their friendship. In turn, Jags understands that he is much bigger and is careful when playing along. Their friendship is incredible. Although at first it seemed like the animals would never get along, they managed to form a strong friendship. After learning this moving story, I can safely say that animals are truly different from people. One day, a man named Soner Bumez was working on a farm when he heard an animal howling for help. The man ran to the place where the landslide had recently fallen and almost immediately came across a stray dog, which was stuck up to its neck in the ground in a collapsed hole and could not move. I saw that the dog was pinned to the ground. Only the head was sticking out, above the ground, Bumez said, adding that the animal had obviously suffered a lot. Tearing up the ground with his bare hands and a small shovel, the man managed to pull the dog out, which no doubt saved him from an agonizing death. But the dog continued to howl despite the absence of injuries, so Bumez and a colleague suspected that the dog was not alone underground. Knowing they could not leave without completing the search, Bumez and a colleague stayed. He got down on all fours and continued digging. After a few minutes, they came across a tiny body with dirty fur. They were puppies from a dog who continued to whine and helped to dig up their babies. The man frantically shook the remaining earth to free the dog, who, to their delight, appeared to be mostly unharmed. The Good Samaritans continued to dig for over 2 hours until they managed to free a total of 8 dogs. One of them sadly passed away, but the mother dog was eventually reunited with 7 cute, healthy groups, thanks to the quick thinking and hard work of Bumez and his colleague. Bumez believes that the dog somehow survived on her own along with her puppies, managing to equip a kennel for her family, but later the whole collapsed due to a landslide. Fortunately, the dogs no longer have to survive on their own, as the man said he would take them home. Their condition is generally very good. The mother and her young are safe, Bumez said. I will take care of them as if they were my own. Thanks to people like Bumez, the dogs managed to survive, thanks to the man who didn't step over the poor dog, but helped her and took the whole canine family to his home. Now the dogs will have their own cozy home and the best owner in the world. A man named Dylan grew up on a farm and has always loved animals. He found them interesting to watch. One day, Dylan found a small opossum near his property, lying motionless in the grass. It was clear that the opossum the man found was recently born and its mother was nowhere to be found. Dylan took the animal for himself and decided to raise it and then return it to the wild. It was very small and needed to be handled very carefully. The first few weeks were the hardest. I had to feed the little possum according to a schedule and monitor him. But this bore fruit. The skunk approached Dylan and could no longer exist without him. The opossum had no fur and every day I had to hold it in my hands and warm it, or wrap it in a blanket. The man nicknamed the animal Lil Mississippi. The vast majority of people think of possums as dirty, aggressive rats that aren't worth dealing with, but Dylan has learned otherwise from experience. Skunks treat people the same way people treat them. If you show understanding and care for the animal, the opossum will respond in kind. Furthermore, according to Dylan's long-term observations, these animals are much cleaner than cats or dogs. They constantly wash themselves and clean their paws after every meal or bathroom. When Lil Miss grew up, it was time to set her free. But every time the man laid her down on the grass and walked away, she would run after him, climb onto his shoulder and affectionately tickle his ear. She wanted to be with the person. Now she can go to the nearest forest for a few hours, but she always comes back. The man is sure that possums are the most intelligent animals he has ever encountered. Perhaps this is so, because it is not for nothing that these animals have existed on the planet for millions of years, and nature considers them ideal. It does not allow them to evolve, keeping them at the level of their ancestors. A puppy named Bibi is one of many rescued from the dog farm. Before her release, Bibi had never seen the sun, never walked the earth, never knew there was more than a small cage and bad food. If it weren't for the rescuers, Bibi probably wouldn't have lived even a year. But now this baby is happy to learn a new world for her and bathes in the love of her new owners. Last September, workers from the Humane Society of the United States broke into a shelter in North Carolina. The animals were taken away, but Bibi, who was kept locked in a cage and used only as a producer of new puppies, caught the special attention of rescuers. It was hard to know how old this dog was, but it was certain that she had given birth many, many times without proper care or recovery time. This is what so-called dog farms usually look like: informal organizations or individuals who keep dogs solely for breeding. In these places, they are guided only by financial gain, and no one thinks about caring for animals. The dog was taken to the veterinary clinic, where he won the heart of Brenda, who worked the front desk. She was sitting in the corner the whole time, scared to death. I couldn't get her home. When I finally managed to get in touch with her with the help of food, she started to trust me. The woman brought Bibi home. The dog was confused by the huge space, as she was used to live in a tiny cage. She had never seen the sun, she didn't know what grass was like. At first she was even scared. But over time, Bibi got used to it and now runs around the house with pleasure and play. Now this little dog, who was afraid of everything, is simply unrecognizable. She is very active and loves to chase the ball. Bibi loves to be free and interested in everything around her.
Not everyone is ready to become parents. Christina Fisher, 36, had an 18-year-old daughter but got pregnant again. The woman understood that she was no longer able to raise a new child, so she decided to give him up for adoption. The baby girl, Abigail Lynn, was born in January of this year and didn't look like a normal baby. According to Christina, the potential foster mother ran away from the hospital and was never heard from again. Abigail was born with Treacher-Collins syndrome, a condition that affects the bones of the face. The consequences of this phenomenon can be mild or severe. Some newborns have subtle differences in face shape, but in its most severe form, the condition can lead to breathing problems. In the case of Abigail, this phenomenon was not detected on ultrasound scans. Everything was a complete surprise when the girl was born. 3 native parents do not choose the appearance of their children, but for adoptive parents this is a very important point. It's sad that potential parents missed the chance to adopt this sweet creature. According to the agency that handled Abigail's adoption, the adoptive parents did not like the appearance of the child. 6 In response, Christina said, "I am very happy that the adoptive parents refused to adopt. Now I can't imagine my life without Abigail." It's amazing how motherhood changes women. 8 Let's wish Christina and her daughter happiness, love and prosperity. Dear friends, if you liked the video, please like and subscribe to the channel for more.
They are always happy to see you coming home. They love you and are faithful just because you are. And it hurts a lot to see these animals abandoned by everyone, the ones they believed in and loved. This story is about man's irresponsible attitude towards animals. This shows how indifferent 4-legged owners can be when difficulties arise. Today we will consider the fate of AJ, who was left near the shelter by the former owner. Officials at the institution, who took the dog away for overexposure, filmed a heartbreaking video of the dog crying, depressed after the incident. AJ was lying on the couch, curled up in a ball and crying. It can be observed that the dog is dominated by feelings of sadness, regret and disappointment. He breathes heavily and intermittently, realizing the uselessness, although, apparently, he considered the owner his friend. Shelter workers tried to calm the trembling foundling. The smart dog realized that he would never see his owner again. The situation was overshadowed by the fact that AJ was not alone in the shelter. With him on the threshold of the institution was his brother Toby. Thus, 2 dogs at once were abandoned to the mercy of fate. The dog does not respond to voices, is bored and sad. AJ and Toby suffered, but they were strong dogs. They knew how to walk on a leash, they were used to everything. But so lonely and scared. The workers decided that they needed to quickly find new owners for the dogs in order to lighten their loneliness. They posted an ad looking for someone who wants to have some great mates. A few days later, the brothers found a new family. The dogs were supported by everyone, apparently, except the previous owner. Employees wished their dear dogs have a nice trip. We also hope that AJ and his brother are happy. Now the dogs surrounded by affection and love. One day, a man was returning home and near the road he found a very small creature, of unknown species and sex. The little animal didn't even try to resist, as it had difficulty moving. He quickly fell asleep in the man's warm hand, so there was nothing left to do but take this little ball of fur home. The man didn't even understand exactly who he was bringing home and what to do with him. He assumed it was a weasel or some kind of ferret, but he wasn't sure. At home, the man's main task was to feed the child, even if it was not clear what kind of creature it was. The little creature tried to attack pieces of fried cod pulp, but it didn't work. The owner even managed to give the little creature milk with a pipette. And literally 5 minutes later the animal began to show signs of life. Obviously, the animal was completely dehydrated. Later the guy read that it was a weasel and also learned how to take care of it. The milk apparently helped, and the next morning the weasel was running. After a month, he grew stronger to the point that he began to recognize me and grabbed each of my fingers, clearly intending to attack them, as if he were a poisonous viper. When the dog appeared, the animal began to scream loudly, clearly calling for one of its parents. The little weasel continued to live in the man's house. They called him Timmy. Timmy would eat a piece of lean, raw pork or a chicken breast the size of his head without leaving a trace, and then go into hibernation for half a day, curling up in a ball and ignoring everyone. The children really liked the animal. They simply play and feed him until he falls asleep. Anyway, the whole family got used to the baby living in their house. Little by little, the weasel grew up and learned to hunt mice, which was very useful in a large private house where there were many mice. Then the weasel started to run into the street and appear at home less and less. The owners already thought that the animal had abandoned them. But the weasel sometimes did not appear for a long time and ran into the forest again. Apparently she really liked her free life. The man already misses the friend he saved from death and hopes to be able to play with Timmy again. Even if the weasel no longer comes close to us, sometimes it still comes for something tasty.
Look this. I have never experienced anything like this. Yesterday, my 5-year-old autistic son met his new dog for the first time, who was specially trained to help autistic children. Tornado. We moved from the US to Japan and have been waiting for a meeting with Tornado for almost 2 years. This photo shows the face of a mother who herself cannot hug, dress, wash, sleep or play with her son when she sees him lying quietly on top of his dog, of his own accord, because he himself feels connected to her. This is the face of a mother who has seen thousands of times how her son couldn't make contact with anyone even though he tried to make friends. At least one friend. At least one close person. She would sit for hours.
It was a normal day at the construction site and the workers were busy with their tasks. Suddenly, one of them noticed something moving among the pile of rubbish. They quickly went to see what it was and were surprised to see a dirty little dog. The poor animal was trapped under some broken boards in a muddy puddle. Workers were concerned about the pup's safety and quickly set out to rescue him. They carefully removed the wreckage and got the little creature out of harm's way. When they pulled him out and examined him, they realized that everything was fine with his health, but the very dirty animal urgently needed to be washed. When they started to bathe the dog, they noticed something strange. Its ears were pointed and its muzzle was elongated. They suspected it wasn't a puppy and decided to call wildlife advocates. After examining the animal, the specialist immediately realized that it was a small fox. The workers were stunned. All the time they looked after the wild animal. The fox was still young and looked like it had lost its mother. Workers knew they had to act fast to save the little animal. They contacted the nearest wildlife rehabilitation center, which took in the fox. In the center, the fox was cared for and fed. Under the constant supervision of veterinarians, the fox felt much better. Workers who found her were happy to hear that the fox had fully recovered and was released back into the wild. I'd like to thank the construction workers who didn't step over the little bug and pull it out of the mud and save its life. Sometimes things aren't always what they seem and every life is precious no matter how small or unexpected. Sarah and Andy met in college, after which they became inseparable. After graduating from university, young people immediately got married. And, of course, we were looking forward to the addition. The couple really wanted to have a child, but Sarah couldn't get pregnant. Doctors were unable to identify the cause. Young people did not have money for artificial insemination. The only way out is adoption. Andy and Sarah quickly found a pregnant woman who was ready to give her child to another family. Everything went according to plan. But just before the baby was born, the phone rang at home. The woman, with whom the spouses agreed to adopt, gave birth ahead of schedule, but not one child, 3. She hid it for 8 months. Most likely, the young woman was afraid that Sarah and Andy would refuse adoption when they found out that she was pregnant with triplets. But the couple was unshakable. The surprising news left no doubt in the parents-to-be. A month later they became mom and dad to the wonderful Joel, Anna and Elizabeth. These beautiful babies were born at 8 months old, so they needed constant medical care at first. Everything else was great. Everything seemed to be going according to plan again. But before the young couple had time to get away from the first shock, another incredible news awaited them. Sarah was pregnant. Not having time to get used to the role of parents, the spouses were already waiting for replenishment again. Fate decided to fully repay the spouses for the years of waiting. Sarah was pregnant with twins. The woman recalls how, having learned the unexpected news, she dialed her husband's number with trembling hands. "Boy or girl?" he asked. "I couldn't find words, I could only squeeze out, 'Well, a boy.' He immediately understood everything. 'Don't worry, we can handle it,' he said. Soon Andrew and Abigail were born. Within a year, Sarah and Andy became the parents of 5 children. Naturally, the parents spent the first few months without sleep, constantly changing the baby's diapers. 300 diapers in a week. If it were possible to give everything back, we would do the same. Now we are an ideal family, and our 5 little ones are the greatest treasure in the world," Sarah says. "This is an ideal family, brave and resilient. May they all have a perfect future." Dear friends, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to the channel for more. This man's name is Kevin Richardson. Since he was a child, he loved animals very much and decided to dedicate his life to them. Now he is a world-famous zoologist who has deeply studied the psychology and behavior of African wild animals. Self-taught, he studied the behavior and characteristics of animals and learned everything only from his own experience. Kevin discarded all previously known safety rules in dealings with predators. Kevin uses love, understanding, and trust to create personal connections with animals. "I can play with them, I can sleep with them. I can interact with them as if I were a lion," said the man. He seeks to penetrate the individuality of the animal, to understand what makes each of them happy, upset, angry, or irritated, just as a mother tries to capture her child's mood. It is for all this that the predators perceive Kevin as one of their own. A man can sleep peacefully in the company of hyenas or, for example, swim in a river with leopards and lions. Friendship with a predator does not happen immediately. Kevin has worked long and hard with almost all of his current charges since they were puppies. Naturally, such activity always involves great risk for a person, and Richardson more than once received quite serious injuries. In most cases, the zoologist was injured by lions, but they did it not out of malice. Biting or scratching a companion during play is a completely normal occurrence for lions, and they consider Kevin a member of their family. His pupils also love to lick him, so he needs to be careful. A lion's tongue is like sandpaper and can easily damage human skin. People are surprised that I haven't been torn to pieces yet. The lions know very well that they can do enormous damage to me with just a movement of their paws. Note that they are doing everything possible to control their movements and their strength, trying to be affectionate and gentle. They can give more love than I have ever seen from people. Richardson is the director of the Kingdom of White Lions Park, where he trains real actors. The wild animals that live in this park are actively filmed in several documentaries and feature films. In his films, Richardson draws public attention to the problem of the extermination of wild animals, all because he loves them and considers them his family. When talking about horses, most people immediately imagine imposing, tall, strong horses that proudly carry their rider. But not all representatives of this animal species meet these parameters. Among horses there are completely different specimens. Some of them are impressive due to their small size and could very well compete for the title of smallest horse in the world. You can take this horse for a walk instead of a dog, take it in the car and keep it in the apartment as a pet, but you won't be able to ride it, it's too small. Miniature horse representing the Pinto breed, named Einstein. Breeders plan to obtain offspring from him. Perhaps the smallest horse, Einstein, will become the founding father of similar dwarf horses. The little horse was born on a farm in the USA, where they raise miniature horses. Now he sleeps in a cat's bed, his owners love him very much. Officially, baby Einstein is recognized as the smallest stallion who, despite his small size at birth, managed to survive. The stallion's height is only 35 centimeters, and his weight is only 28 kilograms. The creation of tiny breeds is based on encouraging the genetic characteristics of dwarfism. So, Einstein is not one of those. He is absolutely healthy, he is not a dwarf, he is just very small. Now the most important thing is to obtain descendants from him. If farmers are successful, it will give rise to a completely new branch of mini horses. The problem will be with the girlfriend, because she must also be small, but healthy, without genetic defects. The breeders have already started looking for a suitable candidate. Einstein is not allowed to enter the enclosure with ordinary horses, as they might simply run over him. After all, a small horse is not aware of its small size and tries to match the big horses. At 1 year old, Einstein's height still matched the world record, but now he has grown significantly. Of course, not at the size of his parents, but he can no longer claim the title of record holder. A mother wildcat with tiny kittens has been seen roaming the area. All the kittens were only a few days old, but not in the best of shape. The man decided to take care of the kittens and keep the mother fed so the kittens could continue nursing. When the man saw how the mother cat carried the kittens to safety and a kitten fell from a height, he knew it was time to intervene. The kitten was barely breathing and not moving. The man was worried that the little one would not survive. His mouth was open, he was freezing and he was panting every 10 seconds. He turned up the heat on her car and rubbed it to make it come back on. I promised him right then and there that if he made it, I would give him the best life ever. That's when the kitten let out a long meow as if to tell its rescuer that he wasn't ready to give up. On the first day, the man had to feed him with an eyedropper as he was too weak to eat. It was really hard days, but every day he got better and better. He was a fighter, so I named him Rocky. 3 days later, Rocky was strong enough to start crawling. He finally took a much-needed bath and even started purring. He had an incredible fighting spirit right from the start. As he continued to heal, the guy noticed something different about the way the kitten walked. After surviving the fall and recovering from the ledge, Rocky faced another big challenge. I took him to a neurologist and she said he doesn't feel the lower half of his body and will never walk, because of nerve damage from the fall, she said. The man made him a pair of wheels and Rocky promptly flew across the room. Its hind legs pedaled, propelling its body forward. Every day, his legs got a little stronger and he walked a little faster. When he finished his daily exercise, he would sleep in his cat bed for a nap. As soon as he wakes up, he goes on the run, chasing a ball or catching invisible bugs. Rocky doesn't let anything slow him down. He's just the sweetest kitty ever. Rocky loves people and is very affectionate with other kitties in need. He inspires everyone who meets him. I would choose him again and again. He completed me and came into my life when I needed him most. He's unbreakable, unstoppable, and can run all day. 2 years ago a woman bought a mini pig named Mika. The little pig was small and very cute. The woman was sure that the little pig would grow up to be no bigger than a dog. However, the animal ended up taking up almost half of the room. The seller assured the 43-year-old woman that the piglet is a mini pig, a type of small domestic pig that is actually no bigger than a standard dog. But the animal grew to 5 feet long and about 3 feet tall. To feed the pet, she spends around 200 kilos per month. Plus, Mika now has a husky dog friend. The dog likes to ride the pig or jump on it. The pig's owner says that despite the size of her pig, she will not part with the animal, because she and her husband love Mika very much. They like how their husky dog wakes Mika up every morning to play. Every time friends come to see me, they are shocked by Mika's size. They ask if I was sure from the beginning that I was buying a mini piglet. And I still believe so, it's just that Mika turned out to be an overweight mini pig. Can an ordinary crow become close friends with a person? It seems like that doesn't happen, but Joe and Pepe's story says otherwise. The girl saved the crow, raised him, and now he flies every day to visit Joe and help her walk the dog. One day Joanna rescued a little crow. He was lying on the grass and crying loudly. Little Pepe, so-called crow, fell from the nest, but his mother didn't come back to get him. The day Joanna got the bird, she had no idea it would become her German Shepherd's best friend. The girl decided to take care of the crow herself. Little Pepe was in terrible condition, walking very poorly and often screaming, apparently calling for his mother. To keep the crow as close to nature as possible and not turn into a bird, the girl built him a nest in a large barrel in the backyard. Joe fed and watered the bird, and every day she thought it would get stronger and fly away, but no, the crow only became more attached to its new owner, its husband, and even its dog. Pepe especially liked the shepherd named Zena, and they often played together. Over time, Pepe learned to fly and moved from the barrel to a nearby tree, but he was in no hurry to leave people. However, all the crow's habits, such as his cautious attitude towards people, remained. Pepe trusted only Joe and her family, but did not accept other people, as well as other animals, except Zena. Now Pepe is an adult crow who has the freedom to fly anywhere, but he always stays close to Joe's house and immediately responds to her call. It seems that he is afraid of losing something important, and that is why he always accompanies the girl on walks with the dog. Pepe appears to help take care of Zena. But the funniest thing is watching the reaction of other crows that fly by and seeing that your fellow crow has friends among the people. As Joe says, these crows sit on the nearest tree or wire, lower their heads and watch the image for a long time, as if this new reality and the possibility of a good relationship between a bird and a person did not fit into your crow brain. 2 weeks ago, rescue volunteer Nicky Martinez got a call about a kitten in need of a family. He was found on one of the streets of Las Vegas under the scorching sun. He sat down on the hot sidewalk and cried loudly. The mother cat was not around, although the people who rescued the foundling tried to look for her. Rescuers asked Nicky to take care of the baby, as the shelter already had many homeless animals who needed help. The girl immediately agreed to take the kitten, whom she named Bert. The gray Fluffy suffered from an eye infection and was also very thin. The vet gave Bert antibiotics, eye ointment, and vitamin supplements. After 24 hours, the condition of the crumbs improved significantly. If at first the stray boy was scared and hid whenever possible, then after a hearty dinner, water procedures and belly rubs, Bert became an affectionate and self-confident kitten. 5 days later, the stuffed kitten already weighed 450 grams. He had a lot of energy and enthusiasm. And now Bert was finally able to see straight. Her wonderful eyes were free of crusts and pus. Today, little Bert is enjoying life, playing with the toys Nicky bought him, exploring the world around him, and basking in the love of his foster mom. It turns out that problems with self-identification are found not only in humans, but also in animals. A calf was abandoned by its mother, so it grew up in a house where dogs lived. Now the calf thinks he is a dog, but being a big boy, he already scares his tailed companions. The owners of a farm in the American city of Asheville, North Carolina, keep their 4-month-old puppy James at home and let him play with the dogs. James learned a lot from his 4-legged friends. The calf was taken home after being rejected by its mother and other members of the herd. According to the farm's owners, Adam Hobson, 33, and his wife, Emily, 32, James was significantly larger than a normal calf when he was born. The family found newborn James 3 years ago in the woods he owned. The baby was very big and it appears that something went wrong during the birth. We thought he had a little brain damage. He couldn't figure out how to suck his mother's udder. The veterinarian tried to help the calf, but nothing came of it. That's when we decided to take James home. Emily said the animal didn't know how to approach her mother to suck, so after unsuccessful attempts to show him what to do, the couple took him home and fed him themselves. Eiley Hobson. When they tried to connect James, who was already quite strong, to other bulls and cows, they dropped the newcomer or ignored him. And the mother cow refused to recognize him. As a result, the baby was sitting, like the Fosses, 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 what a cattle, like cattle, are not sitting down. Were increasingly contacted by people asking them to sell cows as pets. But the couple refused. All animals are like family to them. True friendship is possible even between different species of animals. A striking example of unusual affection is the story of a dog and a cow. Their love was so great and moving that they did not allow anyone to separate them. A dog named Rucky, still a puppy, lost his mother. Fortunately for him, he wasn't the only animal living in the house. 2 cows took care of him. One of them was so imbued with feelings for the orphan that she became his real adoptive mother. Little Rucky, suffering from loneliness, quickly became attached to a large animal. The couple was constantly seen together, they were even close at night. The dog always hugged his new mother before bed. So they lived together for 2 happy years, until their owner made a fatal decision. He had financial difficulties and decided to sell a cow. The choice fell on the dog's mother. When the animal was transported, the dog howled for a long time and constantly looked after the departing animal. He fell into despair, and when he realized that his mathematical cow would never return, it seemed as if tears were streaming from his eyes. The cow he loved was taken to another farm. The distance was unbearable for a dog with such short legs, but nothing could stop him. He confidently rushed to her scent and voice. His mother called him loudly and he ran towards her. Rucky found it, but it was returned to its owner's house again. The dog couldn't handle the separation for the second time and went into depression. The owners hoped that he would soon forget about the cow, but he didn't eat anything. He was sad and howled all the time. Seeing the dog's constant tears, the farmer gave in and decided to return the cow. The owner realized that Rucky would simply die without his beloved cow. The moment of reunion between 2 friends was unforgettable. The cow continued licking the puppy with her rough tongue, and he, without stopping, wagged his tail and clung to her. They were the happiest creatures on the planet at that moment. Experts told the owner that the animal may not have social skills and advised him to give him the opportunity to make new friends. The owner began to arrange more meetings for the puppy, so that his instincts did not completely disappear. The pet gladly made new friends and did not refuse to communicate with its own kind. But a mother is a mother. The puppy and the cow still love each other, fall asleep, eat and spend a lot of time together. We don't know if animals are capable of loving like people, but we can say with certainty and confidence that they know how to make friends. People say that fate brings lost or abandoned animals to the desired threshold, but it does it in different ways. In the case of the video's hero, the hand of fate was his dog Terry. The dog used to walk in the forest near the house, but one day she returned not alone, but with a little dog. When Terry's owner saw the baby, he did not understand what kind of animal it was. The animal was born recently, but there was already something dog-like about him. The owner of the sheepdog initially thought about donating the animal or keeping it, but as soon as he took the baby in his arms he could no longer part with it. He fed the puppy milk, and the dog Terry warmed him with her fur and licked him while they lay together. The baby grew up, and the owner was more and more inclined to think that his new pet was far from a dog. And when he, like a cat, began to climb the cabinets, the man took Russell, as he called the animal, to the veterinarian. Upon seeing the animal, he laughed and said that it was not a dog, but a sable, a furry wild animal. The doctor also mentioned that they are extremely difficult to domesticate and therefore advised that the animal be handed over to the zoo. But the man became attached to Russell, and for Terry he became a loyal and irreplaceable friend, and therefore there was no question of parting. Several years have passed since then, and Russell still lives with a man and a pastor. They are like one big happy family. Recently, it has become fashionable to have extraordinary pets, and therefore sabers as pets are nothing new. This animal belongs to the mustelids and is characterized by zoologists as an aggressive and potentially dangerous predator if found in nature. But if you raise a sable at home, it will not be much different from a cat. Most sables are kept as pets in Japan, China, and Mongolia. What especially attracts people to this animal is that it belongs to the smelling animals, such as skunks or ferrets, but at the same time it has no smell at all, unlike the latter. Tampa's Lowry Zoo is caring for a Florida cougar cub that was rescued from the wild. A kitten was rescued from a Florida national park during January's record low temperatures. The tiny cougar cub had a very low body temperature at the time and was completely unresponsive to touch. The kitten suffered from hypothermia and dehydration, was very lethargic, barely moved, and would certainly have died if he had not been found. At that time, zoologists had not been able to determine what happened to his mother. Did she abandon her son for unknown reasons, or did she die? The researchers immediately decided to take the kitten away, otherwise it would simply die. According to experts, they no longer expected the little puma to survive, but they did not give up trying to save her. At that time, the kitten only weighed about 1 kilogram. If we hadn't intervened, the little cougar probably would have died. He was in very bad shape, so we decided to take him to a veterinary hospital in Florida, where experienced veterinarians would provide him with emergency care. After several hours of fighting for Puppy's life, his condition has improved, but he still needs 24-hour care. Now the baby is feeling much better, weighs 2 kilograms, behaves like a healthy and active puppy of his species, and has an excellent appetite. Most likely, he will continue to live at Lowry Zoo, as without maternal care and certain skills he will not survive in the wild. Although he will not return to his wild relatives, after he grows up, he will be released into a wildlife park, where he can begin a new full life. For now, the cub is fed a special milk formula from a bottle, and in a few weeks they will introduce him to meat dishes. It was strong enough to survive, and observers have a good chance that he grows up safely and becomes a reproductive adult. The Florida cougar is the rarest subspecies of the cougar. It differs from other cougars in its relatively small size and tall paws. This graceful cat lives in the forests and swamps of South Florida. Previously, the Florida cougar was distributed from eastern Texas to the southeast of the country. Today their number is 160 individuals. The reason for the population decline was active sport hunting and drainage of swamps. The small number of this species led to extinction. This is the only subspecies of cougar listed in the Red Book with the status in critical condition. This story began a few years ago in the suburb of Gold Coast, in Queensland, Australia. What happened then marked the beginning of a long and happy friendship between a magpie, a Staffordshire Terrier. A woman was walking in the park with her pit bull when she saw a small magpie in the grass that had fallen from its nest. The chick looked horrible, because its feathers, which were beginning to appear, were covered in thorns, dirt, straw. The woman called her husband and decided to see if the chick could fly. They later realized that the little magpie didn't survive on her own and decided to take her home and named her Molly. The woman fed the magpie with special bird food and decided to introduce Molly to the pit bull Peggy. According to the hostess, the magpies have already attacked Peggy, so she knows what a sharp beak they have. Therefore, when the bird went to the side with 4 legs, it immediately jumped back. However, she didn't try to hide or attack. The owners continued to care for the magpie and tried to establish contact with Peggy. To do this, when the animals were around, they treated them with a treat and played with them. Contact was made when Molly herself approached Peggy and lay down next to her. The dog didn't run away, it just approached, doing so very carefully so as not to hurt the little creature. This was the beginning of a tender friendship. When Molly recovered and grew up, the woman decided not to limit her freedom. The handle can come and go as it pleases. Sometimes it may take her several days, but she returns to her family. Peggy and Molly are always together. But Peggy, due to her age, can't run and play all the time. So she sometimes pretends to be asleep. Instead of running away, Molly learned to bark. The magpie appears to have begun to identify itself as a dog. There are pets that live up to their nickname, and the robust pit bull is one of them. Meet this giant monster called Hulk, and he is the biggest pit bull in the world. But that's not all. The Hulk weighs a whopping 76 kilograms, but the most interesting thing about this is that he's only 17 months old, which means he hasn't stopped growing yet. When the Hulk stands on his hind legs, he literally towers over his owners Marlon and Lisa Grennan. Every day this giant eats almost 2 kilograms of ground meat, and in the future he will eat even more. It is simply impossible not to notice such a giant, as he is 3 times larger than any other American breed. Despite the fact that dogs of this breed are considered dangerous and fierce, the Hulk's owners claim that he is very kind. They are so confident in him that they undoubtedly trust Hulk with their 3-year-old son. Hulk has a superpowered body and sharp fangs that he can use if anything threatens him or his family. The Hulk currently weighs 76 kilograms, but due to his young age he is still growing. Although the pit bull has been nicknamed Deadly, his owners claim that he is very affectionate and obedient. Its owners believe that the bigger the dog, the kinder it is. The owners, Marlon and Lisa Grennan, work in the company they founded, Dark Dynasty K9S, which specializes in breeding and training dogs of the most dangerous guard breeds. With the ability of the Hulk's owners, you definitely shouldn't worry about his fate and education. The Hulk is the head of a large family and can be seen from afar. The Hulk has children and grandchildren, but they are nowhere near his size. The owners adore their dog and claim that he is ready to comply with any command from his owners or, if necessary, come to his defense, not sparing his own life. It's funny how completely different-looking animals find a common language and a connection arises between them. This is a truly strong and unusual friendship between animals. Osiris, the dog, and Riff, the mouse, form a unique and completely inseparable type of friendship, despite their huge difference in size. The dog and the mouse became best friends and even saved each other. Osiris is a Dutch shepherd and Riff is an ordinary mouse. The animal owner saved the little mouse from death when he was just 4 weeks old. Osiris was also rescued from the streets. His former owners simply left the dog in the parking lot. Initially, it was assumed that Osiris would remain with the family only during the period of recovery and search for a new home, but all the family members immediately fell in love with him and decided to keep him forever. However, the dog was depressed for a long time, probably worried about being separated from his former owners. It was Riff who managed to revive the dog and help him enjoy life again. The owner didn't even introduce them. They somehow found a common language among themselves and became friends. Today this couple are true inseparable friends. They can't stand even a minute of separation. They even eat together, although dogs generally do not allow anyone else to eat, but Osiris reacted quite calmly to the fact that the little mouse got out of his bowl. The animals are so close that Osiris often allows Riff to climb into his mouth to clean his teeth and nose. Riff really likes licking the inside of Osiris's mouth. I'm sure you are all wondering if we are afraid that Osiris will eat him. No, because Osiris has helped raise and care for dozens of animals, and he is the kindest dog I have ever met. The owners write about their animal's pet. We wish this unique couple long and happy years of friendly life.